painting that he had searched all the rooms in the mansion, but he did not find any clues. Eugene scratched his head in frustration. He didn't understand and didn't know anything. Eugene stared intently at Sienna's painting while saying in his heart that he would do whatever he wanted. If Sienna wanted to ask him anything, she should have left a trail for Eugene. As the mansion guard turned around, Eugene gave Sienna his middle finger and asked the girl to come to see him in person. But after a few moments of not getting an answer, Eugene turned around and got ready to leave. Before that, he had told Sienna's painting to come to see him if she was still alive. When Eugene came out of the mansion, it was already dark. The tour guide was still faithfully waiting for him in front of the mansion. Because of that, Eugene gave additional tips because the man was patiently waiting for him. Because he was happy to get tips, the tour guide asked again where did Eugene want to go. Eugene wanted to go straight to the Red Tower and said that the tour guide didn't need to accompany him anymore after that. Under the light of the half moon, they got on the flying car again. While on the trip, Eugene asked the tour guide about his older brother, Eugene Lionheart. Does the tour guide know about his brother? The young man in the hat immediately looked panicked. Even so, he still replied that there wasn't a young magician in the Pentagon who didn't know about Iota. Eugene began to tell him that his family was indebted to the tower for hosting his older brother for 4 years. So for the sake of the tower's good name, Eugene wants to know the rumors about his older brother. The tour guide was panicking and closed his mouth tightly. He was scared. Seeing that, Eugene recounted that after he was adopted, he had never spoken to his older brother. So he has to know something so that he doesn't make mistakes when talking to his older brother later. Eugene promised not to get angry hearing the information from the tour guide. He also promised not to tell his family and his brother that he got information from this tour guide. With a serious face, Eugene swore on his behalf. So he urged the tour guide to tell him about the rumors about his brother. The man in the hat looked doubtful, but slowly he told me that it was rumored that Iota often seeks pleasure every day outside the tower. Eugene thought carefully about the word enjoyment. Considering that now his brother is 19 years old, Eugene thinks that isn't it normal to seek pleasure like that at that age. However, the tour guide immediately interrupted by saying that Iota was not looking for ordinary pleasure, rather the enjoyment of the succubus. At first, Eugene smiled after understanding the meaning of the succubus, but in the next second, Eugene's face was red with anger bubbling up. He even cursed out loud. He asked how there could be succubus when they weren't in Helmuth. The tour guide asked Eugene to calm down before he explained that they were not in Helmuth. But there is still a black magic tower which is a place for black magicians and some demons. Eugene rubbed his irritated face and called his brother a fool. He still didn't expect his brother to get involved with the succubus from the Black Tower. The tour guide made it clear that Iota was not just playing around, but looking for pleasure. That's why he has one in every city. Aroth also has a special alley used for such needs. The alley was famous for its black market, but there were special places that hired succubi as maids. And rumor has it, Iota often visits such places. Eugene immediately asked where the alley was. The tour guide replied that the alley is called Bolero Alley, where it doesn't open every day and turns into a sordid place only on full moon nights. Inside his mind, Eugene said he had no intention of approaching Iota when he reached Aroth. He wanted to focus on his development while keeping his distance from Iota. But his brother, who is said to be a descendant of Vermouth, as well as the eldest son of the Lionheart family, instead plays with fire with the demon. Eugene was furious that his older brother was degrading the family to play with a succubus. The tour guide asked Eugene to keep this a secret. Firmly, Eugene said he would keep the promise he had made. He promised not to tell anyone, including his stupid brother. In his mind, Eugene knew that it was still just a rumor, so he needs solid proof. And so for the time being she would restrain herself from slapping his brother hard. Eugene continues to chant the name of Bolero Alley, which he will visit at the next full moon. Eugene is greeted by a witch at the gate of the Red Tower. Upon learning that it was Eugene Lionheart, the girl immediately lowered her hat as a form of respect. This girl also introduced herself as Hera. This girl said the master of the Red Tower wanted to welcome Eugene in person, but he suddenly had a business that could not be postponed. Just as Hera finished speaking, there was a large explosion at the top of the Red Tower. Eugene sees this and asks if it was an accident. Hera explained that the Red Tower focused on summoning magic, and among other magics, summoning magic has the highest risk of failing. From the glass of the exploding tower appeared two monsters that were about to flee, but quickly two red long arms caught the two monsters and destroyed them. It was Sir Loberian's doing. After the monsters disappeared, Sir Loberian immediately turned into the building and scolded his students for failing their lessons this time. Sir Loberian asked in a high voice if they had forgotten what it took to summon a shadow beast via a lava magic circle. Sir Loberian was so angry that his face was red and the muscles in his face were showing. This blonde-haired man asked if his students knew what would happen if he caught the shadow beast too late. The monster has no emotions at all. They controlled his primal instincts. They would immediately hunt down the citizens of the capital. Sir Loberian's pupils shook and apologized in a stammered voice. Then, after being satisfied scolding his students, Sir Loberian asked them to pack up their things and leave immediately. Then, Sir Loberian flew down to Eugene, who was standing in front of the tower. A bright smile immediately appeared on this wizard's face as soon as he met Eugene again. Sir Loberian examined the young man's body before him. He barely recognized Eugene because of his rapid growth. Eugene praised Sir Loberian's physique, which had not changed at all. Sir Loberian explains that magic is the source of life energy. Even though Sir Loberian hasn't changed physically, Eugene knows the wizard in front of him has changed since 4 years ago. Because Eugene had trained his mana, now he could tell that Sir Loberian was very strong. The mana around his body was increasingly churning. Eugene knows Sir Loberian is not as good as Sienna, but Eugene admits that Sir Loberian is worthy of being the master of the Red Tower. Sir Loberian had heard from Sir Gilead that Eugene was interested in magic, so Sir Loberian explained that magic is indeed a beautiful art, but at the same time, magic is often hard to learn. But Sir Loberian is sure Eugene can do it. While they were talking, suddenly Sir Loberian felt someone's presence behind the big door of the tower. So this witch forced the door open with her strength to see a thin young man who was eavesdropping on their conversation. The skinny young man who looked frightened turned out to be Eugene Lionheart. When he saw his adopted brother, Eugene immediately cursed in his heart. He could see that his brother's life energy had been sucked away by the succubus. That's why now his brother looks thin and lethargic. Sir Loberian asked Iota to come closer and greet Eugene, but the young man looked panicked and said he didn't know what to say. So it was Eugene who greeted his brother first, even though with sharp eyes full of anger. Seeing the anger in his brother's eyes, Iota stuttered. Sir Loberian immediately told Iota to go back upstairs and read some books. Sir Loberian's eyes were no less sharp and sinister than Eugene's. Iota languidly complied and closed the gate. Then Sir Loberian apologized to Eugene for showing such an unpleasant thing. After that, Sir Loberian asked if it was true that Eugene didn't want to learn directly from him. Eugene justified it because he didn't want to burden Sir Loberian. Eugene says that if he learns directly from Sir Loberian, many will think the Lionhearts are being unfair. With an excited face, Eugene said now he wanted to study at his own pace. Sir Loberian didn't push Eugene either. She said it wouldn't help as long as Eugene didn't want to learn from her. But if Eugene had any questions, he could ask Hera. Sir Loberian also allowed Eugene to stay in the Red Tower while Aeroth was around. After hearing all of what Sir Loberian said, Eugene asked if he could go to the tower library now. 1 month after arriving at the Red Tower, Eugene visits the library every day. He read a magic textbook from morning to noon. Then he slept late. He also practiced other aspects besides magic. He trained his mana several hours before going to the library, then training his body every night with the sword until sweat covered his whole body. His sleep was indeed little, but his outer body was able to recover quickly even if he only slept for a few hours. That morning, Eugene wanted to try everything he learned from the beginner-level textbooks in the library. 300 years ago, Sienna divided the magic grades into distinct sections. Originally, it was a method of hers. But once he was appointed master of the Green Tower, many of Aeroth's wizards began to follow Sienna's methods. The first is the circle method. The constantly rotating mana ring is used to cast magic. When mana grew beyond the capacity of a circle, a new hole would form again. 300 years later, the majority of magicians still use circles to use magic. Those who don't use it are magicians with different fundamentals, such as elemental wizards and black magic wizards. Now Eugene belongs to a practice room where Hera is waiting for him. Eugene asks today if he is allowed to use a circle rite. Hera allowed that while explaining several methods other than circles, but it has been proven that circles are the most efficient method for 300 years. Before that, Eugene's permission to add a few modifications of his own. Hera does not recommend modifying the base circle, but he wanted to hear more from Eugene. Eugene said he wanted to utilize the Lionheart family's mana method. Hearing this, Hera immediately panicked. He explained to Eugene that the mana used for martial arts and magic uses a different mechanism. If Eugene doesn't make magic and activate it properly, then the magic won't appear. In her mind, Hera knew that if Eugene lost control of his mana, he would be seriously injured. Or even worse, Eugene could die. But this young man steadfastly said he still wanted to try it. Will he succeed? Can he do it? That's why he read all the manuals in the library. Hera sighed heavily seeing Eugene's determination. This girl was really surprised to see the behavior of the 17-year-old youth in front of her. Hera knew Eugene would not stop before he tried it himself. Finally, Hera let Eugene try the method. But Hera picked up her wand and was alert. She said that if the situation got dangerous, Hera would immediately stop Eugene. Hera said that if Eugene was injured, not only himself but also the Tower Master would be dragged into this incident. Eugene agreed to the idea. Then he started emitting mana all over his body. Mana is bluish-white, which always amazes anyone who sees it. Eugene started to contract in his training of managing mana and circle simultaneously. Meanwhile, Hiro was still keeping her guard up right in front of him. Eugene knows the white flame and circle methods may appear to be different, but they are fundamentally the same. The white flame method controls the mana through the star in the heart. Meanwhile, the circle controls where through the ring. If the ring can be replaced with mana, then the mana that can be used will increase. Eugene was going to adjust his mana because he didn't know what would happen if he just guessed. Hiro chuckled as I saw what Eugene was doing. Hiro was amazed to see that Eugene could control that much mana so perfectly. The mana should have disappeared, but Eugene was able to control it just fine. Hiro was truly amazed to see a young man at Eugene's age being able to do that. Eugene can create fireballs in his hands very densely. It then turned into a small ball of mana. Hiro was surprised when she saw fireball magic, which then turned into missile magic. Eugene could even use magic without casting spells and only using precise calculations. Eugene can also change the form of his magic without having to change it first. Eugene smiled happily seeing the mana orb at his fingertips. He thought it was pretty good for a start. Eugene asked Hiro to summon a monster so she could try his new magic. After thinking for a long time, Hiro finally decided to summon a stone golem monster. This girl made a magic circle and then took out a fairly large golem monster from the circle. Hiro said the monster was made of cabrium. This monster has no defensive spells, but its body is tough enough to withstand most types of attacks. Eugene says the monster is perfect, so this young man started pointing his forefinger and exerting his newly created magic on the monster. After finishing the training session, Hiro immediately reported the results of the training to Sir Loberian. The leader of the Red Tower was surprised to see a big hole right in the middle of the golem monster's body. She asked once again whether it was true that Eugene managed to make a circle using the white flame method and managed to use magic with it. Hiro confirmed this. She was amazed to see Eugene's mana density and purity, which was extraordinary. This girl said that regardless of the type of magic used by Eugene, the power of his attack spells alone surpassed that of a 3-star magician. Sir Loberian thinks Eugene's talent is terrible, because that young man could replace the ring with martial-based mana manipulation. Terrible is more appropriate than the word amazing to describe Eugene and the current head of the Loberian Sir. Seeing Eugene's way of studying, Sir Loberian wondered if 3 stars were equivalent to 3 circles. With Eugene away, Sir Loberian tries to ask Hiro if Sir Loberian is being unfair if she writes Eugene a letter of recommendation so he can enter the Great Library of Akrian. Hiro was certainly surprised to hear this, because the Library of Akrian can only be accessed by high-class wizards and nobles so far. Sir Loberian said Eugene fit the place perfectly. This grown man pulls out a paper and pen to write down recommendations. Sir Loberian thinks Eugene is a genius because he only read entry-level books for a month, but with that, he can use magic by changing circles using his method. Even that method was able to shatter the golem's shell made of cabrium. It was because of this that Sir Loberian believed Eugene was fit to enter the library. According to him, a person with such talent deserves appropriate behavior. That way of saying the other magicians would find this unfair. Sir Loberian replied that any wizard who refused to accept this decision must be blind with jealousy. Sir Loberian then asked what was Eugene's reason for leaving, considering that the young man did not know anyone in Aroth. Hiro replied that Eugene wanted to go visit an old friend. Now Eugene is standing in front of the statue of Sienna, which is located in the Maldane Square area. Eugene stared intently at the bust of Sienna, who was grinning broadly. He remembered Sienna always smiling like that whenever she succeeded in something. While staring pensively at the statue, suddenly a man with a large body and beard approached Eugene. When does Eugene ask if it's Gargis? Instantly the figure of this large man before him answered excitedly that he was indeed Gargis Lionheart. Gargis comments Eugene has grown, though not as big as himself. Eugene maintained that it was the man who had been a giant from the start. The two of them shook hands as a form of greeting. After a long time of not seeing each other, Gargis could tell from Eugene's grip that this distant relative had been training hard for these 4 years. But according to him, it was not enough. Gargis immediately handed over a small bottle of his family's secret muscle growth formula. Eugene categorically rejects the potion. Gargis asks why. Because even Eugene's father, Sir Gerald, managed to lose weight thanks to the potion from his family. Hearing this, Eugene asked Gargis to stop sending strange things to his father. Then, Eugene just remembered why this big man in Aroth. Gargis even asked back if Eugene had ever heard of Bolero Alley. Gargis wanted to buy a giant testicle that would be auctioned at that place. Instantly, Eugene was dumbfounded with a horrified expression. He got even more goosebumps when Gargis clearly stated it was a giant acorn. For Gargis, this thing is very valuable because it contains magic that can be used as a composition for muscle growth potions that suit him very well. Gargis asks Eugene to come with him because he's worried he won't have enough money to buy the thing. Eugene immediately refused to lend money to buy something like that. But Gargis knelt and begged Eugene with all his heart. The attitude of this big man attracted everyone's attention, so Eugene had no other choice but to lend money and tell him to get up again soon. Gargis also thanked him and said he would reimburse the money as well as the interest. Gargis also informed us that many other valuable items will be auctioned. Eugene seemed disinterested in hearing that. Gargis guessed that this distant relative had no interest in anything else since he already had Wynneth. Eugene replies he's more interested in the other parts of Bolero Alley than the auction. Eugene remembered that a few days ago he met Iota while walking in the tower hall. Iota's expression clearly showed he was addicted to the succubus. Eugene believes Iota will visit Bolero Alley on the next full moon night. Eugene was walking down the tower hall. He was immediately summoned to Sir Loberian's room as soon as he arrived at the tower. It so happened that this young man also wanted to meet him and asked about Iota. When the two of them were face to face, Sir Loberian smiled happily to welcome Eugene. He asked Eugene to sit down and they started chatting. Sir Loberian immediately showed him the letter of recommendation he had made to Eugene. Before discussing this further, Eugene wants to know what happened to Iota from the Tower Master himself. Sir Loberian immediately darkened when asked about it. She lost her way to explain this matter to Eugene. Finally, Sir Loberian said that the rumors about Iota were true. She had previously tried admonishing Iota several times, but that wasn't enough to stop him from going to meet the succubus. Sir Loberian said many people used to die because their souls were sucked out by a succubus. But when Helmuth opened his borders, the demons immediately changed their attitude completely. Succubus also falls into that category. They still suck people's souls, but they don't kill anyone because the Queen of Nightmares strictly forbids it. But Eugene rejects that perception to justify his brother's behavior. But Sir Loberian asked Eugene to consider the position of the Iota. Sir Loberian explains that Iota came to Eroth 4 years ago. Many expect him to achieve success, but his talent was unable to live up to those expectations. He's been through a lot of suffering, and even though the masters had tried to lead him further, they still had no results. Because of the family name, Iota couldn't escape the expectations of those around him. The pressure he was under must have been steadily increasing. Sir Loberian thought it would be fine to let him entertain himself occasionally and relieve himself. Sir Loberian had warned Iota against getting too addicted. Without it, Iota's mental breakdown would have been even faster than this. Eugene fell silent. In his mind, this young man could understand Iota's feelings, because he already knows how it feels to live with the main family. The fickle first wife Theanis, and the intrigued Anasilia, the gifted and ambitious Seal and Cyan. Iota always felt pressured to coexist with them. The reason why Iota stayed in the tower even though he was cursed at was because it was better than going back to his family. Eugene understands that Iota's life story is very sad, but he still goes too far because of his addiction to succubus. Eugene clenched his fists on the table in anger at the thought. The succubi were always smiling now, but they were still demons. They could never mingle with humans. Eugene needs to see firsthand what they did to the Iota. Finally, the full moon night arrived. Eugene goes to Bolero Alley with Gargis. Even though they were already wearing robes that completely covered their bodies and faces, they still used appearance-changing magic. Gargis asks why they have to change their face. Eugene replies that if news about two Lionhearts visiting an illegal alley openly spreads, their family's reputation will be tarnished. Suddenly, a kind of cell phone communication device carried by Eugene rang. The young man immediately took it and listened to the figure on the other side speak. The one who called Eugene was the tour guide who brought Eugene. This man in the hat was standing on one of the balconies watching for Iota's arrival. He said he would immediately give the news to Eugene when Iota came later. Eugene asks how the man will be able to track down his brother who will use the disguise later. The tour guide replied that Iota had never used disguise magic. He also always wears the same robe so that he is easily recognized and easy to find. Eugene is certainly annoyed to hear this. He didn't expect that his older brother would be so stupid as to attract attention because of his big name. Eugene wants to teach him all out so that his bad character will disappear. After the phone hangs up, Eugene will come in to watch the auction with Gargis. He'll deal with the Iota later. Bolero Alley has many auction venues, but all follow the same rules, namely blind bidding. Apart from the companion following you, everyone is placed in a separate room, and all of them can't check who took part in the auction. The masked maid gave notice of the 3 buttons in the room. The middle button can be used to join the auction, the right button to increase the bid, and the left button when the customer needs help. After the guard left, Eugene and Gargis sat down on the big chair that was in the room. Gargis thought Eugene didn't like participating in such auctions. Eugene just wanted to pass the time. After all, he was curious about what items would come out. The large window in front of them finally showed a servant who would lead the auction. Before the auction started, the maid announced that they were offering rare magic materials. In terms of quality, goods from Helmuth are the champions. Then one by one unique items were issued, starting from Proxia apples, Mandagro roots, and Uzurok flowers. Eugene was getting bored because the items that were issued didn't catch his eye. But suddenly Eugene's sharp eyes were stunned and he immediately pressed the button to enter the auction. No kidding, he immediately gave a price of 1 million cells. In his heart, Eugene didn't expect to see that thing here. Forgotten sword, destruction takes the form of a sword. And a weapon that has never been written down in history, fragments of the Moonlight Blade. After Eugene won, it was immediately given to him by the masked maid. As soon as the maid leaves, Gargis asks why Eugene bought such a worthless item. But Eugene ignored Gargis' question. He opened the box and took the object. In his heart, he was sure it was a fragment of the Moonlight Blade. Tazard was where they found the fragment. It was also the place where they found the Moonlight Blade in the past. They found it in one of the deepest dungeons there. Eugene wonders if Vermouth put his sword back where it was after he came back from Helmuth. The Moonlight Blade is too dangerous. The turtle-dove sword rejects anyone except Vermouth as its wielder. The sword always brought about terrible destruction every time it was swung. Eugene wonders if Vermouth broke it down into smaller fragments because he didn't want anyone else to use them. Staring at the small object in his hand, Eugene wished it would still hold some energy, but sadly the fragments seemed to have no power. Even the sinister sensation he felt 300 years ago was gone. All that remained was the silence of the fragment. Eugene kept it in his pocket. Right at that time there was a phone call from the tour guide man. He informs them that Iota has come. So without wasting any more time, Eugene immediately left the auction. After previously he gave a black credit card to lend to Gargis. After exiting the auction venue, Eugene asked the figure on the other side of the phone where he should go. The tour guide explained that if he went to the north side of the alley he would find a shop called Rafflesia, so that's where Iota went. After walking a few steps, Eugene saw a sign with a Rafflesia flower symbol on it. Before entering that place he was intercepted by two quite large demons. This is the first time Eugene sees them after reincarnation. If this had been Eugene's previous life he would have instantly killed those two demons. Eugene told the two guards he just wanted to have a look. The guard informs us that the entry ticket costs 2 million cells. He will be charged an additional fee depending on the duration and dream. Eugene immediately handed over the money they asked for and entered the place. Inside that place were many humans laughing happily accompanied by the succubus. Eugene sits on one of the chairs and wonders where is Iota. Without wasting much time this young man immediately asked the succubus who was serving him where to start dreaming. The succubus, who was wearing sexy clothes, immediately looked happy to hear Eugene's question. He also began to seduce and touch the body of the young man in front of him. The succubus announced that Dream's room was downstairs. Before going there, he advised Eugene to drink first to help him express his hidden desires. But Eugene refuses to drink and he wants to go downstairs right now. The flirtatious succubus was instantly delighted and would take him downstairs to select a room. There seemed to be lots of rooms downstairs, but it was a dim place without enough lighting. While walking down the hall, Eugene says the place is creepy and it's the first time he's done this. The sexy succubus in front of him tried to beg him to calm down and said it would only take a little bit of his life essence. After seeing the layout of the corridor, Eugene immediately handed over the money and said he would just sleep at home. The succubus looked surprised but he accepted the money anyway. Then Eugene asks where is the way out. The succubus led him past the person who was about to take him out to a nearby restaurant. Eugene had moved on to a brighter restaurant. But he was still greeted by a demon who asked if his dream was beautiful. Eugene ignored the waiter's question and instead asked for the best food with extra meat. Eugene immediately ate heartily at his table, until finally he saw Iota being helped out by two main gate guardian demons. His face looked paler and more lethargic than usual. Eugene immediately cursed in his heart when he saw his eldest brother come out with the help of a demon. Eugene immediately followed his brother. He was led out of the restaurant and walked down a dark alley. When he was about to follow Iota into a room, he was stopped by three thugs. They said this wasn't a place to do business, so they sent Eugene away. Instead of leaving, Eugene just asked what place is this. Immediately he was strangled by one of the thugs who yelled at him and forbade him to ask many questions. Not wanting to be outdone, Eugene immediately gripped the arm as big as the thug and punched him in the face. After one fell with a single blow, the other two immediately became inflamed. They cursed at Eugene while drawing their weapons. The two skinny thugs tried to attack Eugene from the left and right, but their attacks can be easily dodged by Eugene. Then with a very fast movement, Eugene beat them until they were unconscious. Eugene immediately pressed the head of one of the thugs with his foot. Then he asked what place it was. Because the three of them were no longer able to answer, Eugene finally decided to go in and check directly. Eugene immediately destroyed the wooden entrance. As soon as the door opened, he realized the air in the room had been mixed with the forbidden drug. He became even more irritated at his older brother realizing this. According to him, this is too much to just be called looking for a change of atmosphere. Inside the room were humans, demons, and beastmen who immediately panicked upon seeing Eugene's arrival. Meanwhile, Eugene himself was surprised to see three different types of creatures able to interact and get along in one place. He didn't expect world peace to have such a far-reaching impact. Because furious, when the creatures immediately attacked Eugene together, but Eugene easily beat them with his magic shots. When all three of his opponents have been defeated and seriously injured, Eugene immediately asks where is his older brother, Eugene Lionheart. But on second thought he didn't need to ask those three lowly creatures, because Eugene could find it himself. This young man also drew his sword and immediately pointed the weapon upwards. Instantly a huge whirlwind appeared and destroyed the walls and floor above it. With this, Eugene can see up to the top floor. This young man saw that there was no one on the first floor or the second floor, so he immediately smashed through the third floor and soared upwards. There is only one room on that floor. He was sure that was where Iota was now. Eugene saw that black energy that was so dark was about to attack him from behind the door, so he immediately pulled out the shard of the moonlight blade which immediately absorbed the black energy well. After finishing, Eugene immediately took back the sword fragment and said in his heart that the sword was indeed extraordinary. Even though the sword's form was just a fragment, it still resisted any mana. Eugene immediately asked someone who just came out from behind the door if what he used was black magic, right? Instantly the old figure that had just appeared panicked and couldn't answer. He was amazed to see someone who had survived his terrible spell. This young man before him was able to fend off that attack. On the other hand, Eugene recalled Sir Gilead's words that always forbade them to study black magic. So he was furious, because his father's biological son, a true descendant of Vermouth, was even playing with black magic. Then in a cold tone of voice, Eugene told the black magician that he would not beat up the old man if he ran away from him right then and there. As soon as he reached the third floor, Eugene was immediately attacked by a magician, an attack that used black magic. Eugene couldn't believe that Gilead's biological son and direct descendant of Vermouth could do such a bad thing. Even though Eugene could block and parry the attack with the hold he had, now his body was covered in white flames that formed a lion's mane which was full of energy. It made the magician confused and didn't know what else to do. However, during the confusion, two demons who had brought Iode there then reappeared. Eugene and the two demons got ready, then fought each other. With Eugene's strength and agility, the fight was unequal and was easily won by Eugene, and the demon's body was finally destroyed. The witch who saw this became confused and full of fear. The witch then asked if he was Eugene Lionheart. With a sharp and intimidating look, Eugene said that if he knew, then he'd better get out of his sight. The witch then tried to explain what happened to Eugene, but Eugene still did not want to stop his steps and listen to him. Seeing that Eugene didn't want to take back his words, the witch then attacked Eugene with his black magic. However, Eugene can easily cut the